Well, hello everyone and welcome to the qualifying day recap, where today we will look back on actually what will end up being the first day of track action at the Nürburgring after yesterday's washout. We had a lot of running today, and now before we go into the qualifying review, we need to start with practice 3 and what went down in what was an exciting third practice session. It obviously was not the third practice session, it was the first practice session, but a lot happened in the session. As expected, grip was not that present throughout, obviously with it being the first running on the circuit this weekend, and also having just been wet as well. So, and in the cold conditions, it took a while for the drivers out there to find their feet, and that showed when we saw mistakes from Sebastian Vettel. We saw a mistake from both Williams drivers, George Russell and Nicholas Latifi. George Russell lucky not to go into the wall, and Nicholas Latifi making quite a hash of his rejoin from the track. And we also saw quite a few drivers missing their braking point at the final chicane. But the big story from the final session was Lance Stroll not taking part because of an unspecified illness. They did not actually say what he was ill with, but apparently it was not COVID, but obviously he was not well enough to take part. And Nico Hülkenberg was drafted in for a second time this season. Before qualifying, Lance Stroll will not take part in this weekend's race, and Nico Hülkenberg will get his third go in the Racing Point. But it was Valtteri Bottas who topped the timesheet instead of Lewis Hamilton. Charles Leclerc did a stonking lap at the end to be third fastest, ahead of Max Verstappen in fourth. The Red Bull did show some really good pace in the final session, and actually showed that they could potentially challenge Mercedes in qualifying. Then you had Vettel, Norris, Perez, Ricciardo, Albon, Gasly, Ocon, Kvyat, Sainz, Raikkonen, Grosjean, Magnussen, Russell, Giovinazzi, Latifi. Obviously, Stroll did not set a time, and he was then replaced. And then we had the qualifying session later on, and it was looking like it could be quite a close one. So, qualifying got underway, and it was the first bit of interest was seeing, because it was Nico Hülkenberg's first go in the car around the circuit, and he did not manage to get out of last place, but he did do a valiant effort to be just a couple of tenths off of the next car, which was Kimi Raikkonen, in his first go in the car at this circuit. And he did a really good job to be a couple of tenths off, and I could see him really progressing through the field. Now he's finding his feet. As he finds his feet throughout the race, I could see him really progressing through the field. But then out of Q1 was Grosjean, Russell, Latifi. Williams didn't really show any signs of getting in like they have done before. So quite a disappointing session for Williams. Then you had Raikkonen in 19th. But Antonio Giovinazzi getting into Q2 for the first time this season. He qualified 14th ahead of Kevin Magnussen, who will start in 15th. And then you had Danny Kvyat in 13th, just behind Pierre Gasly in 12th, and Sebastian Vettel in 11th. And then we got to Q3. Carlos Sainz qualified in 10th, and he was quite disappointed with 10th place on the grid. Then you had Sergio Perez in 9th, Lando Norris in 8th. That's a disappointing qualifying for McLaren. They were both running the new nose, but the car did not seem to be that hooked up around here. Sergio Perez also is stating that Racing Point kind of messed up the strategy going into during the session. Then you had Esteban Ocon and Daniel Ricciardo in 6th and 7th. Ricciardo qualifying in 6th and Ocon in 7th. Good qualifying for Renault. Then you had Albon in 5th. But the star of qualifying has to be Charles Leclerc, qualifying in 4th place. And I honestly think that Charles Leclerc is proving himself more this year than he was last year. I mean, he did win a couple of races last year, but he was in a car that was capable of winning a race. I honestly think the ultimate test of a driver is how they can perform in a difficult car. Like most good drivers we saw have been able to perform in difficult cars, like for example Lewis Hamilton in 2009, Fernando Alonso in 2012 and 2014. And this is obviously a very difficult car, and Charles Leclerc is just taking it to places where it just simply does not belong, and he's qualified in 4th place for this race. And then the battle for pole. Max Verstappen looked to have an advantage in the early stages. He was on provisional pole. But then Valtteri Bottas pulled a lap out of the bag and managed to take provisional pole position, and neither Hamilton or Verstappen could respond. And it was a big statement. I've seen a few things saying that this is going to be a massive relief to Bottas. Now he's got one over on Lewis in that way. That's not the starting grid. I've got the wrong starting grid here. I think I might have had the wrong practice 3 result. Yeah, I did. I'll just get the right starting grid up because it's linking to a different folder. But there we go. It's Valtteri Bottas on pole position ahead of Lewis Hamilton in 2nd. Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton just managed to beat Max Verstappen for 2nd on the grid. I think Verstappen will be quite disappointed with 3rd, to be honest. And then you have Charles Leclerc in 4th, with Alex Albon in 5th, Daniel Ricciardo in 6th, Esteban Ocon in 7th, Lando Norris 8th, and it's Perez, Sainz, Vettel, Gasly, Kvyat, Giovinazzi, Magnussen, Grosjean, Russell, Latifi, Raikkonen and Hulkenberg. So, what to watch out for tomorrow? The weather forecast is saying that we could have similar conditions to Friday tomorrow, and that could be advantage for Verstappen. However, looking at the weather forecast now, the rain chance, typical of F1, is going down. Right now it says there's only a 20% chance of rain tomorrow with sunshine. And I'm sure a lot of people around the world will be saying that's just typical F1, promising a wet race all week and then it ends up being sunny. Especially as Monday is expected to have a lot of rain. But Red Bull look to have really good pace. And the other thing is, we don't, even if it's dry, the teams don't have an idea about their long run pace. They weren't able to get that data, so they're going to be basically doing this on the fly with no data on how their car is going to handle in the long run pace. And that could throw up quite an interesting race. And it's that sort of thing that derails Mercedes and could work in Max Verstappen's favour coming into tomorrow. And also, as I said, they're all the top 10 are going to be starting on the soft tyre, but they don't know how long that's going to last. So, a lot could happen in tomorrow's race. And of course, the run down to the first corner is going to be interesting because you can overtake around here. So if a driver has more pace, much more pace than the car in front, then it's going to be fairly simple to get the move done. But that is it from the qualifying day recap. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you tomorrow at, I believe it will be same time tomorrow 5 p.m. BST for the race review, where we will hopefully be looking back on a fascinating Eifel Grand Prix. The time is not final, it will be confirmed on the RaceWeek Twitter beforehand, but we'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.